Folks, it's Rock D Lee, and today we're jumping into a Warhammer video. Today we're tackling Istvaan 5, the Betrayal, man. And if you guys see me typing away or whatnot, I do take notes and stuff like that. If you guys are new here, you already know my favorite faction is Orcs. And I got the Tau as the second, then we got Sisters of Battle, and then honorary mention we got the Yanari because I know they got kind of phased out whatever their plan was. So I've already talked about it in numerous videos. I'm excited to jump into this. Yeah. Istvaan 5 is such an important moment in the Warhammer 40K franchise as the moment where they betray the God Emperor. So it's been on my to-do list to check it out. I don't know how interesting the video will be, but it's just one of those things where you just gotta watch it. I actually found a Warhammer shop nearby, and I was going to record me getting my first little set. I don't know if I'll ever have time to play, but I also reacted to a video. I don't know which order I'll post it, of the tabletop game, and that was actually hype. I didn't know y'all really measure how close you are to your opponent with a measuring tape, fam. When the homie whipped out the measuring tape, I was like, yo, what's he doing with that measuring tape? Yo, like it's a I don't want to call it realistic, but it's so hands-on for a combat simulation that I got extremely hype. You know, I love Yu-Gi-Oh! That's like my go-to card game, and I play Magic the Gathering a little bit, but I was never hardcore Magic the Gathering. I'm just one of those people that even if I'm not going to dedicate my life to something, I like to dabble in it. That's why I have so many channels and stuff. I don't like to be in the box where I only do one thing. I like to experience new things. So it's like, yeah, I played Magic the Gathering. I know how to twist my little mana around every time. What was it when you summon something, when you activate an ability? I forgot the reason why you turn your mana cards when you put a card on the field. Anyways, but Yu-Gi-Oh was definitely my go-to thing because I watched Yu-Gi-Oh. And that's just that. That's just that. And my friends was playing Yu-Gi-Oh. Anyways, I don't know anyone that plays Warhammer. And as even you listen to Wes Hammer's video, when you're trying to make the content, you don't have time to enjoy the hobbies anymore. Anyways, that's just that. Let's just jump into the video. Y'all don't want to listen to me.
War is the crucible in which we burn.
Is my video still playing?
In the fires of battle, the past is consumed, and the future born on tongues of flame. No greater fire has there been in our times than the free bloody hours of the Dropsite Massacre. 3
hours? Jeez. Istvaan 5. Istvaan 5.
The civil war of the Horus Heresy marks humanity's history as its single bloodiest campaign. Once noble brothers and fathers rent the galaxy in twain in the name of betrayal, false gods, and hubristic ambition. No other conflict would emulate the atrocities and war crimes committed during the 31st millennium, and one battle above all epitomized the conniving and malevolence of the Traitor Rebellion. For today, we shall elucidate a war zone which sundered 3 full-strength legions and would be remembered with the greatest infamy in Imperial records. This is the tale of the Battle of Istvaan 5, the Dropsite Massacre. Mark this day well, my friends. The Emperor's Loyalists are heading to their doom.
Horus Lupercal.
Horus Lupercal, War Master
Epic
of the
name.
Imperium and Primarch of the 16th Legion, denounced the rule of the Master of Mankind and began to tread the path of treachery. Having already culled his own legion and those of his complicit brethren, Primarchs Fulgrim,
Culled his legion.
Angron, and Mortarion, the Lupercal's atrocity of Istvaan III had marked the first great victory in his campaign to usurp the Emperor.
Oh, I gotta check out Istvaan 3.
Successful plot to cleanse his armies of loyalists, the traitor legions had endured losses and costs in excess of their projections due to the stubborn defiance of heroes such as Saul Tarvitz, Nathaniel Garrow,
Shout out to these goats,
and Garvio Loken. 4 legions could never hope to conquer the Imperium, And so it was that the War Master devised plans to rally the rest of his brothers to the fold. Knowing in his heart that the valiant Primarchs Lionel Johnson, Sanguinius, and Rabute Gilliman would never abandon their Gene Father, the War Master dispatched the vast contingents of the Dark Angels, Blood Angels, and Ultramarines far from the conflicts of Istvaan. Dispatching his brother Fulgrim, Primarch of the Emperor's Children, to convince his most cherished brother Ferrus Manus to join their cause.
Ferrus Manus.
The Gorgon of Medusa would be among the mightiest leaders of the rebellion, should he pledge his allegiance. Meeting with the Gorgon within his Anvilarium aboard his flagship, Fist of Iron, the Phoenician attempted to sway the Iron Hands to join him in overthrowing the Master of Mankind. Furious at such a blatant act of duplicity,
You know, I forgot how epic the Remembrancer can be sometimes. He's a very good script reader when it comes to painting an epic story.
the Gorgon refused to aid such madness.
I feel the
Defiance
stakes.
let free the wrath of Fulgrim, destroying the weapon he had once crafted as a gift of brotherly love, Fireblade, with his hands of Necrodermis. The resulting explosion of the weapon proved sufficient to give Fulgrim the upper hand. Already manipulated by the demon of the Lair Blade, the Phoenician incapacitated the Primarch of the Iron Tenth and ordered his men to murder his Morlock honor guard.
Dang.
Awakening to find all but his first captain, Gabriel Santor, deceased, and several vessels of his fleet crippled, the Gorgon resolved to lead the charge of the Emperor's Retribution fleet.
Retribution
As
fleet.
word reached the Master of Mankind of the betrayal of Istvaan Free, delivered by the surviving loyal battle captain of
Hold
the
on,
Death
hold on.
Guard,
What was that?
the betrayal of Istvaan Free, delivered
As word reached the Master of Mankind. That's the Emperor, right?
by the surviving loyal battle captain of the Death Guard, Nathaniel Garrow. Further reports from Ferrus Manus of Fulgrim's betrayal galvanized the Loyalists' hunger for vengeance. Rogel Dawn,
Rogel Dawn.
of the Emperor, commanded 8 legions, including a contingent of his own men, to crush the rebellion before it had a chance to fester, with 3 Primarchs at the spear tip of the assault. Vulcan, the Drake Lord of the Salamanders, and Corvus Corax, Raven Lord of the Raven Guard, pledged to fight alongside the Gorgon and his Iron Tenth, whilst meanwhile Fulgrim and the Dark Mechanicum prepared the world of Istvaan V for the impending assault.
The Dark Mechanicum. Oh, that's
Aided by a
right.
second wave-
Some of the Dark Mechanicus did join the rebels, didn't they? Because they was fighting on Mars among themselves, right?
Of legionary assault by the Iron Warriors, Night Lords, Word Bearers, and Alpha Legion. Any hope of victory for the traitors could not be achieved when set against such overwhelming firepower. An assumption which would cost the Loyalists dearly.
Dearly.
I can scarcely imagine what inspired Horus to this madness. In truth, the very fact of it frightens me. For if even the best of us can falter, what does that mean for the rest?
Give
Lord
up.
Manus will lead us in. 7 legions against 4. Horus will regret this rebellion.
Although a large contingent of the Imperial Fists had been dispatched to reinforce the Loyalist invasion, turbulent warp storms impeded the Sons of Dawn from entering the fray. Despite being diminished to the strength of 7 legions, the Retribution fleet of the Emperor, under supreme command of the Gorgon, would prove more than sufficient in quelling the traitor rebellion. With all haste, the Iron Hands, Salamanders, and Raven Guard
Iron Hands.
arrived within the Istvaan System, unaware of the machinations of the ruinous powers,
Dang.
expediting their traversal through the warp to reach
Dang.
their target. The
Expediting there.
traitors had mustered upon the world of Istvaan V, yet reports of the desolate husk which had been its sister planet, Istvaan III, marked the blood already spilled within this accursed system of space. No traitor fleet was present, only a myriad horde of foes dug deep into the soil of the Urgal Depression of Istvaan V.
No traitor.
Standards of the 3rd and 16th Legion proudly goading the Loyalists to attempt landfall. Already incensed from his encounter with the Phoenician, Ferrus Manus wasted no time in ordering his forces to combat the traitors. Their enemy was vulnerable, their forces still wounded from the purge of their own legions. Now was the time to strike. Yet unbeknownst to the Loyalists, a compact between the traitors and second assault of the Emperor's wrath had been made.
Dang it.
Lorgar Aurelian, aboard his flagship, the
Lorgar
Fidelity
Aurelian.
enacted the next masterstroke of his plot to corrupt the Imperium to the thrall of chaos.
So, where do they get these names from? Lorgar Aurelian, cool name. On his flagship, the Fidelitas Lex, cool name. All their names is cool. Epic.
Meeting with Primarchs Perturabo, Conrad
Pertur-
Kurz, and
Conrad
Alvarius Omegon, the delegation listened to the honeyed words of the Urizen.
The honeyed
Promising
words.
a new era under the rulership of a true emperor, imbued with the favor of the dark gods. Lorgar proclaimed that should they side with the War Master, each of their legions would be rewarded in kind. Declaring the phrase, "Death to the false emperor," the phrase uttered by the first captain of the Night Lord's Legion, Jago Sevatarian, resounds to this day as the rallying war cry of murderers, zealots, degenerates, and chaos filth across the galaxy. Whilst the second wave of reinforcements hurtled towards the Istvaan System, unified in purpose, the Loyalists began their assault. In the opening salvo, the Loyalists bombarded the
When I watch or listen to Warhammer 40K lore, I know this is going to sound strange. It always makes me re-question or look at the theology of Christianity differently, because I always struggle to understand why Lucifer would betray God and a third of the angels would follow him. It would have to be a losing battle. And the only thing that makes sense to me, because I don't think that Lucifer would be this arrogant or that arrogant to think he could win, is if we actually have a limited, for the assuming the theology is real, assuming Christianity is real, there has to be a part of the book or parts of the book left out that we don't know. And they refer to things like when God says, "Let us," it's like he's talking to people, like there's other people witnessing what he's doing. And I like how the 40K universe talks about, or has it, that there's gods of individual domains, so to speak, God is a label to describe a powerful being, but there are many types of powerful beings that could be described as a god. Now, that's going to be blasphemous to people. I don't mean to be. It doesn't mean that there's not the one true God, but there are other dark entities or something or whatever. So when I look at this, okay, and I connect it to theology, it makes me believe that there has to be outside entities, forces, or energy that influence the Lucifer and a third of these angels to go on the dark side, just like we saw in 40K Warhammer. Because 40K Warhammer makes sense, but they got hundreds of books to show this world, right? Where the Bible, you got one book, and I don't care what anyone says, many books are also left out. We could debate about that and so forth, but there's many books that are left out. So to me, it's an incomplete story, no matter how you look at it. Now we could say, oh, but they gave you whatever you needed to know, or what have you. I'm not here to debate that, but I do know that things don't make sense. No. There's lots of things to question with just this book that I have right here. And I like to apply some of the things with 40K Warhammer, and then it make sense. And the best example I have for you guys is, you guys ever seen the first Jurassic Park movie where they tried to bring back the dinosaurs, but they couldn't because some of the DNA got destroyed or it was missing? Think about that as a Bible. The Bible represents the DNA that they found for dinosaurs. Part of the DNA is missing. Books is missing from the Bible. So they use like a frog DNA, right, to fix or supplement the DNA parts that they were missing. I'm using 40K as a frog to supplement aspects of the Bible that is not clear enough to me. So that doesn't mean it's right, but it does make things like, oh, if there was a dark entities that influenced the homie Lucifer, this makes sense, which then means that Lucifer may not even be the ultimate evil. He's a pawn, possibly, in a larger universal galactic game.
positions of Horus's rebels. the Emperor's wrath made manifest as Emperor's children, World Eaters, Death Guard and Sons of Horus, sheltered as best they could from the orbital bombardment. The first warning came when a dull, red-orange glow built behind the clouds, bathing the Urgal in a fiery light. Then came the sound, a low roar that built from a deep, thrumming bass to a shrieking whine. Alarms sounded, and the clouds split apart as individual streaks of light burned through and fell in a cascading torrent of fire. Thunderous explosions ripped along the edge of the Urgal, and the entire length of the War Master's forces were engulfed in a searing, roaring bombardment. For long minutes, the forces of the Emperor pounded
Long
the Urgal
minutes?
from orbit, a firestorm of unimaginable ferocity, hammering
Jeez.
the surface of Istvaan V with the power of the world's end.
Jeez.
Eventually, the horrific bombardment ceased, and the drifting echoes of its power faded, along with the acrid smoke of explosion. But the Emperor's children had performed perfectly in creating a network of defenses from which to face their
Emperor's
former
children.
brothers, and the forces of the War Master had been well protected. From this vantage point in the alien keep, the War Master smiled, and he watched the sky darken once again as thousands of drop pods streaked through the atmosphere towards the planet's surface. The flames of war subsided, and with the traitors reeling from the bombardment, the Gorgon unleashed the legions of the Emperor.
This let me. Yeah, actually, so much questions and resources when it comes to these invasive forces. When they drop these pods onto the ground, do these pods return to the ship after the battle is done? What happens to the pods after the battle is done? Because I'm thinking about the amount of resources that are used. Shout out to my homie the Tau, because we look at humanity and we're like, you guys are very inefficient. And I know that they don't use AI. People are manually lifting cruise missiles. Hundreds of people are trying to load them into cannons to shoot them. You think about the massive manpower it takes to do anything in any one of these ships. I have so much questions, and I know humanity is greatly inefficient with their stuff. And now that I know how inefficient they are, sometimes something as casual as drop pods, I now have additional questions like, how do they load these drop pods, or what else is going on with these drop pods that they're not letting us know? Or I just have so much things to think about. The more I learn, the more things I have to think about, if that makes sense. Anyways, let me take a break. I gotta turn over this chick.
Took to the feet free no, the Gorgon unleashed the legions of the Emperor.
Emperor.
Three noble sons of the Master of Mankind at the head of their vast legions took to the field. Vulcan combating the traitor's left flank, Corax striking from the right,
My
and
boy
the Gorgon
Corax.
pushing to the center. Both sides of the fray were equal in size, for whilst the traitor legions had incurred losses from Istvaan, the Salamanders and Raven Guard had a reputation as among the smaller forces of the Legiones Astartes. The Iron Hands formed the bulk of the assault, veterans of hundreds of compliances throughout the stars, and regarded as among the greatest legions, even by the War Master himself.
Epic.
Their stubborn taskmaster, epitomizing the Emperor's martial skill, brought to bear. Ferrus
Look at
soared
this
to the
cannon.
storm
What is?
thousands of traitor
Look at this
Astartes,
suit.
mere minutes following landfall. Progress was slow, yet the Loyalists could not relent in their aggression, knowing that reinforcements were imminent in supporting their attack. The Urgal depression ran thick with both Loyalist and traitor blood. Already the battle proved to be among the most bloody engagements seen since the Great Crusade. Loyal war machines of Legio Atarus, alongside the Iron Tenth, combated the Legio Mortis of the traitors, supported by armored divisions of the Sons of Horus and World Eaters. Wading through the thickest of fighting, the Loyalist Primarchs carved sways through the enemy lines, knowing that soon this bloody work would be over. For today, Primarchs of the Imperium
So
would
cool.
fall, yet not among the traitor ranks. Several word-bearer captains were shaking hands with their counterparts in the other legions, with more joining in every moment. They gripped wrist to wrist, a traditional warrior gesture to seal a pact. Argel Tal offered his hand Husevatar. The Night Lord gripped the Wordbearer's wrist as their emotionless faceplates met each other's eyes.
Emotionless
"Death to the
faceplates.
false emperor," said Sevatar, becoming the first living soul to utter the words that would echo through the millennia.
Death to the.
The curse was taken
Oh.
up by other voices, and soon it was being cried in full-throated roars.
If there's one thing about me, man, I respect the emperor of mankind. So death to the traitors. Death to the traitors of mankind.
Death to the false emperor! Death to the false emperor! Death! Death! Death!
Death to the traitors. Death. Death to the
The
traitors.
traitor Primarchs took to the field.
Death to the
butchering
traitors
anything
we
within
want.
their path. Angron,
Oh,
Primarch of the
god dang it,
World,
Angron is here.
sated the cravings of his chain axes, Gorechild and Gorefather, whilst Fulgrim laughed with glee as the keen edge of the layer blade tore through the ranks of the Iron Hands. Mortarion harvested the lives
God
of the
dang,
Loyalists with
Mortarion.
arcing sweeps of his war scythe. Silence. Yet no sight could be seen of the War Master. Watching the battle unfold from afar, the Lupercal smiled at the sight of the second wave of the Loyalist advance. Drop pods descended from the heavens, and the sky
Wow.
darkened as tens of thousands of shadows cast a pall over the Urgal depression.
Insane.
A cheer arose from the Loyalists as Iron Warriors,
They think it's gonna be
Night
for them.
Lords, Word Bearers, and Alpha Legionaries took to
Oh god.
calling for men.
Night Lords is the homie Conrad Kurz. Who is the other one showed up? Word Bearers, Lorgon's people. And is there a dude named Alfarius? I forgot who that one is. But either way, it's going to tell me. But the Night Lords is not coming to help y'all.
Word Bearers, and
Word
Alpha
Bearers.
Legionaries took to
Dang.
calling for medical aid from their newly arrived kin. The Salamanders and Raven Guard regrouped, yet received no confirmation. of their
Oh,
cause,
man.
As the fresh Astartes looked on in grim silence.
Oh,
The
man.
traitors retreated from the battle, and with victory sealed in the name of the Emperor, the Gorgon charged after the Phoenicians' withdrawing forces.
Oh, no.
Separated from his allies, Ferrus Manus watched in horror as the Iron Warriors claimed the high ground of the Depression and turned their guns on his men.
Whoa. Ferrus Manus watched in horror as the Iron Warriors claimed the high ground of depression and turned their guns on his men. Ooh.
All around the reinforcements encircled, training their sights on Astartes clad in green, black, and chrome. Whilst the Night Lords took up defensive positions with aid from the Word Bearers, the Iron Warriors and Alpha Legion
Look at these
acted as the
cannons.
hammer, driving the Loyalists to their respective anvil.
Bad.
Isolated from the Gorgon, Corvus, Corax, and Vulcan ordered their men to fall back.
This is
As a lone
bad.
flare erupted from the fortress of the War Master. Volleys of bolter fire fell upon the Loyalists, trapped within the Urgal Depression, killing hundreds of Astartes before the first magazines of their guns had been ejected.
Crazy.
Returning to the fray, the bloody traitor forces from the first wave joined forces with the newly arrived legions.
Now it's a
cut
pincer
down
attack,
the Iron
basically.
Hands. First
Terrible.
Captain Corferon, First Chaplain Erebus, and Lorgar Aurelian looked on with smug satisfaction at the massacre unfolding as a smile came close to forming on the Urizen's lips.
The Urizen.
Clutching the weapon made for him by the Gorgon, Illuminarum, Lorgar's mind felt a pang of doubt as he watched the Primarch of the Iron Tenth struggle for his life. Reassured by his adoptive foster father, Corferon, Lorgar ordered his legion to commit to the fray. Corax and Vulcan could not come to a consensus of how to salvage their armies. The Lord of
Terrible.
Drakes suggesting a tactical withdrawal, followed by fortifying their positions, whilst the Ravenlord argued a full-scale escape effort.
Crazy, man. I knew this was going to happen, but it still feels so bad to experience it, man. It's nothing worse than betrayal. They thought their homies was coming to back them up, and before you know it, they're absolutely surrounded, being cut down. And, you know, when you think about just the absolute loss of life from the Loyalist side, it just hurts, man. It's just with all the problems that we got, and this, the same stuff happens in the real world. Y'all over here fighting each other when we could be fighting cancer. Whatever, crazy talk.
Such arguments would be ended by an artillery strike upon the escape effort. By fortifying their positions, the Lorax and Vulcan could not come to a consensus of how to salvage their
Sorry,
armies.
I took a break. I didn't
The
know where I
Lord
left
Drakes,
off.
suggesting a tactical withdrawal, followed by fortifying their positions, whilst the Ravenlord argued a full-scale escape effort. Such arguments would be ended by an artillery strike upon their position, and though the Ravenlord survived the blast radius, he found no trace of Vulcan.
Of course.
The
Don't matter
Primarch
though.
of the Salamanders was missing. The Ravenlord had ordered his men to retreat, and the Iron Tenth were fully surrounded. All hope of victory in the name of the Emperor was lost. That day, we saw that even gods could die.
Damn.
Nothing was ever the same again. Not for the Primarchs. Not for us. They were mortal.
Who said
Not
that?
for the Primarchs. Not for us. They were mortal, after all.
Damn. But it was Primarchs getting killed by other Primarchs. Ye of little faith.
Dozens of thousands of Loyalists had fallen, with the Iron Tenth receiving the most casualties. The rage of Ferrus Manus was legendary among the Imperium,
Yeah.
for he had not achieved the title of Gorgon for his compassionate disposition, nor fair looks. Yet never before had Ferrus felt such betrayal, such loss of his men, or flagrant treachery.
It was.
This sin committed by the War Master and his allies was unforgivable, and no matter how slim a chance,
it is.
the Gorgon refused to die without claiming the head of he who had wronged him.
I actually forgot how good the Remembrancer is at the script writing. I think when I first started listening to him in his Primarch videos, yeah, this is a year ago. He got better. That's all that matters. He got better as time had progressed, and this is good delivery.
Fulgrim took to the field,
Fulgrim
reveling
took
in the
to the
slaughter
field.
of his once cherished brother's armies, and the whispers of the Lair Blade, promising glory and satisfaction. The two demigods of war met in battle, their eyes locking as the merciless cruelty around them reached new heights of suffering. For a moment, the Phoenician faltered. The eyes of the Gorgon had never once been fueled by such hatred, and never directed at his own gaze. Knowing that all chance for reconciliation lay dead, only through battle would either of them be freed from their bonds of broken brotherhood. Morlocks and Phoenix Guard clashed, their former campaigns as allies torn asunder, and little more than fuel to sate their thirst for vengeance. Wielding the reforged weapon,
Fireblade.
Ferrus had pledged to end the life of his fallen brother with the gift he had once made in the name of fraternity. Fulgrim carried his own craft, Forgebreaker, retrieved from Ferrus during their previous encounter, which had been carried into every battle the Gorgon had waged since its creation. Today, a Primarch must die, and
It's
as
gonna
the
be
two
you.
clashed, the weapons once pledged to one another shook the earth as they impacted. As
Shook
each
the
rained
earth.
terrible blows and further stoked the fires of anger within their hearts,
Look at
the
this
battle would
dude.
come to an end. As the
Look at this dude, Ferrus Manus. What is up with his armor? Is this dude like War Machine with it? Yo, he has a gun up here, some type of blade thing. That is insane. I would like to see him in combat for real, utilizing all this, because it's so big. I just can't fathom how you fight with it.
Gorgon drew Fireblade within moments of slaying the Phoenician.
Definition.
Yet as Fulgrim let go of Forgebreaker and drew the blade of the Lair, he felt unnatural power course through his body. Reeling from the surprise renewal of strength, Ferrus blocked each strike from the Xenos relic until its tip
Xenos relic.
pierced his breastplate.
Oh.
Falling to his knees, the Gorgon felt Fireblade slip from his grasp and looked up in horror at the transformed visage of his brother. In a
Transform
moment of clarity,
visage.
Fulgrim realized the mistake he had made when drawing the blade from its sheath, and fought to release it from his grip.
Oh.
Unable to
Oh.
unclasp his fingers from the weapon, the Phoenician struggled with the knowledge that he had fallen deep into the depths of corruption.
Oh, he
as
knows
Ferrus
it's happening.
reached for Fireblade. As fire reaved the Gorgon's weapon, the Lairblade moved as if of its own volition, its unnaturally sharp edge cleaving through the neck of Ferrus Manus, as Fulgrim desperately tried to pull the blow. The Gorgon was dead, and as the Phoenician cradled his brother's severed head in his arms, he knew that his own soul was forfeit to the whims of malevolent, thirsting gods.
Sometimes I'm gonna have an epiphany that I may have heard before and it just went over my head or I forgot. I knew that Fulgrim and Ferrus Manus were they had among the closest all right, let me rephrase this. If you had to ask who's the closest Primarch to the homie Fulgrim, he would have said Ferrus Manus, and vice versa. They both made weapons, clash over ideologies, handed them over to each other, and they had a special bond. I didn't imagine that Fulgrim didn't want to kill him, though. It seems that Fulgrim wanted to defeat him in battle. Let me know. He wanted to defeat him in battle, but not kill him. Or is it that when this sword, this demon, this chaos energy was controlling him, he didn't want to kill his brother like this? Because the instant regret is there, and it's amazing how they point out the clarity that Fulgrim is having. Like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. It's like, what y'all was fighting for? So anyways, that's interesting. It's too late. Oh, you see the head of his bro.
And the voice of his brother's blood shall cry unto him from the ground and demand vengeance.
Epic writing. Trans Epsilon Thule.
The Raven Guard had pulled back from the killing field, yet would not be allowed to escape unscathed. The Word Bearers, led by their zealous Primarch Lorgar Aurelian, could not allow the Raven Lord to take flight, and with his trusted lieutenants Gorferon and Erebus at his side, attempted to clip the wings of the Raven Guard.
Literally.
The Vorback, twisted demon hosts of the 17th, attacked the Liberator en masse, yet despite their warp-twisted forms could not hope to best a Primarch.
A Primarch.
Unwilling to watch his most pious sons perish, the Rainmaker intervened, his
The
anger
Rainmaker.
stoked and blood risen. Of all the sons of the Emperor, Lorgar Aurelian was by far the weakest in martial skill, yet it was a bitter
Lorgar
irony
Aurelian.
that his weapon once gifted by the Lord of the Iron Tenth cut down Loyalist Astartes as its maker lay cold and dead within the Urgal Depression. Corpses of ravens and zealots piled high as the two Primarchs waded through the hordes of their enemies, and soon the two came to blows. The Urizen had no hope of winning a duel with the Raven Lord.
The
two
reason
sons of the Emperor had
the Arisen is Lorgar, right? Every now and then they interchange names. I mean, who the hell is that? I think I've caught it right now. Oh my God, the hell is going on? what are you guys doing? You know what I mean? What is going on here? Oh my God, please don't put the world into war, guys. I'm trying to chill, man. I'm trying to chill. This is not gonna work, so I'm gonna give up. I give up. I'm going to assume I'm right. My internet's being slow.
had never been close, and were almost strangers, further estranged for over 2 centuries since last they spoke. Releasing his long-repressed psychic power with careless abandon, energy reaved Lorgar as he demanded Corvus face him in battle.
Face me!
Crozius and Claw collided, the Urizen parrying vicious blows, whilst the Ravenlord cleaved.
Yeah, the Urizen is definitely him.
Cutting a gouge
Cleave.
from Lorgar's face.
Ooh.
The wound inflicted by Corvus was destined never to heal, and forever mark
Yeah.
the Urizen's visage.
Well, I don't have to look up anything. It's
Impaling
definitely
through the
Lorgar.
chest with his lightning claws, Korax resisted the pain of the Urizen desperately crashing his head against his features, smashing the bones of his face. Tearing free his claws, moments before achieving the killing blow, a sadistic mirror of the Liberator stepped in. Conrad Kurz, the Night Haunter of Nostramo, smiled as his own claws scraped against the ravens, a grim promise of murder etched on his feet. His own claws, Conrad Kurz, mirror of the Liberator, stepped in. The killing blow, a sadistic mirror of the ring crashing his head against his features, smashing the bones of his face.
I see.
Tearing free his claws, moments before achieving the killing blow, a sadistic mirror of the Liberator stepped in.
A sadistic mirror.
Conrad Kurz,
Conrad
the Knight
Kurz.
Nostromo, smiled as his own claws scraped against the Ravens.
Look at
a
how
grim
close they
promise of
are.
Murder etched on his features.
Oh,
Seizing Corax's wrist, Kurz attempted to prevent the Raven Lord from escaping.
dang.
Yet as he berated the bearer of the word, Corax took flight. Warning Lorga that should he fail again, he would not save him, the Night Haunter looked upon the twisted forms of the Galvorbak with disgust,
Oh, look at his
commenting
armor.
that his legion and his own character were malformed with corruption. Even the monster of Nostromo detested the sight of the Sons of Lorgar. Yet whilst the rewards of victory tasted bitter to many of the traitors, Loyalists lingered among the ashes of war, for now began the hunt for the survivors of the massacre.
Terrible. Terrible.
Oh, the battle had ended.
So even Conrad Kurz shows up and he's like, "Ugh, what happened to your men, fam? And I'm never gonna save you again." It's scum like this that are uniting against the Emperor of Mankind. It'd be like that. You know what's funny? And you know, people have different perceptions depending on which part of the world you grew up in. But as a Western American, sometimes when I see which dictators are friends with each other, or let me rephrase that. You think of a country that's invading another country's sovereignty against their will, unjust war, and then you see who their friends are that's backing them. It's like all you guys are like the outcasts of the world order. Of course you guys are together. If y'all two are friends, that only says that if y'all two are allies, that just says so much about you and your cause, you know? So what I'm trying to say is like Conrad Kurz showing up to the battle and seeing, I guess it's the word bearers looking the way they looked, right? Who are these people? The Sons of Lorgar, right? The Sons of Lorgar are the word bearers, right? Is that not the same people? Anyways, you see them looking like this, and Conrad is like, ugh. Ugh. What's wrong with you? That's a sign, Conrad. You're on the wrong team. Though the battle had ended and the enemy was far from the reach of our blades, most of us didn't come back from their ergo depression.
Oh, the battle had ended, and the enemy was far from the reach of our blades. Most of us didn't come back from the
Oh, you're
ergo
missing
depression.
us.
Even those men who escaped, those pitiful few, even they didn't come back. They're still there now. We all are. Fighting for our lives.
Epic. Unknown Astartes.
Resisting until the bitter end, the vast proportion of the remaining survivors of the massacre fought tooth and nail to slow the War Master's victory.
At least they didn't
Tens
surrender.
of thousands perished as the advance of Angron, Mortarion, and the Imperator-class Titan, Dies Irae, butchered and maimed anything in their path.
Terrible.
Taking to the field, Horus Lupercal led his Justaran Terminators to mop up any remaining holdouts of the Loyalist forces, his victory assured with 2 Primarchs slain and 1 broken and bloody. The Iron Warriors destroyed the Loyalist dropships, preventing escape to those within reach of salvation from the heinous butchery, whilst Night Lords, Wordbearers and Alpha Legionaries corralled the Loyalists into killing zones.
This
The
is
Raven
terrible,
suffered
man.
the least
I can't imagine reading
and
this.
as experts of hit-and-run tactics, proved the most adept at procuring vessels for their escape. Compassionate to a fault, the Salamanders, though bereft of their gene-sire, assisted the Iron Hands in escaping the slaughter, as the stubborn sons of Medusa begrudgingly resolved to avenge their gene-father another day.
Another day.
Meanwhile, Vulcan and a contingent of his men fought on. Battered and bruised, the stalwart warriors of Nocturne proved their renown as soldiers, forged of mighty constitution. Unwilling
Mighty
to endure further
constitution.
casualties from the hammers of the anvils of war, the Iron Warriors ordered a tactical nuclear warhead to be fired upon the Lord of Drake's
Ooh.
position,
Ooh.
atomizing the Primarch of the 18th and his men.
It's crazy that nukes are in this world, right? Like, why don't they nuke people, like, hypothetically more often? You know what I mean? Like, what stops people from nuking, like, all the time?
The traitors had sealed their victory with
In this
excessive
world.
firepower, cunning, and cowardice.
A tactical nuke.
200,000 Astartes had perished. A
Jeez.
son of the Emperor had been slain.
Jeez.
And 3 legions loyal to the Imperium had
Gone.
been annihilated. The master of mankind's dream of a united galaxy was dead. The
Cause
War Master
Horus
of the Imperium
Lupercal.
had secured a supreme advantage in the first stages of the Great Civil War, and the defenders of humanity remained scattered across the void. Warships of the Loyalists crashed onto the surface, their detonations creating vast craters and scars as they tumbled from orbit. World Eaters flensed their kills of flesh, constructing ossuary cairns from the skulls of the fallen.
What?
whilst Wordbearers
Why?
conducted fell rituals using
Why?
previously wounded Astartes. Loyalists turned on their allies as madness and grief eroded their stoic countenance as the war machines of the traitor legios rooted out ancient
Jeez.
holdouts and rally points. Retrieving tens of thousands of progenoid glands from the dead, the traitors harvested these precious organs of the Astartes for their own grim purpose. Yet even in the darkest of days, glimmers of hope remained. Vulcan
yeah.
of the Salamanders, against all odds, had somehow survived the engagement, though with his
Of
discovery
course.
by the Night Haunter of Nostramo, soon languished as a prisoner of war. Small bands
Conrad
of
got
resilient
him.
Space Marines of the now shattered legions formed bands of Warforged Brotherhood to harry the War Master's forces for years to come. The fleet in orbit of Istvaan, though outmatched in firepower, lasted far longer than the engagement on the surface of the planet, facilitating escape attempts and destroying several traitor voidcraft in the hours following the conclusion of the ground war. For 20 solar days, the Loyalists had bitterly fought to preserve the honor of their legions, with the Ravenlord leading the survivors as they sought a means to escape the wrath of the traitors that remained. World Eaters, Sons of Horus, and Iron Warriors scoured the ruin of Istvaan V for prey, yet the Ravenlord refused to allow the extermination of his charges. Countering the purge of the Iron Warriors for solar weeks, after gathering much needed
Solar
intel on their
weeks.
surroundings, the Deliverer proved worthy of his title. For 98 solar days, the Ravenlord orchestrated ambushes against the traitors, yet now a chance for escape presented itself within the Gula Salt Plains. Led by Captain Bran Neve of the Raven Guard, dropship reinforcements from Deliverance had come to their master's aid, and with haste extracted as many survivors as possible from the onslaught of the Red Angel, Angron.
Red Angel.
Watching the futile blood-crazed screams of the World Eaters as they departed from the surface.
Crazy
Horus demanded
visual.
answers pertaining to how Bran had come to Istvaan. Convinced by the Praefector of the Therion cohort, Marcus Valerius, and his prophetic visions of ruin, the mortal of the 19th Legion's expeditionary fleet, though largely forgotten by history, had proven crucial in preserving the life and legacy of the Liberator.
Of the Liberator.
The voyage of 50,000 light-years, timely in its arrival, many valiant souls would be spared the blades and axes of the butchers of Nuceria. Whether these visions were imparted by the grace of the Emperor is unknown, yet the shattered legions, for all their losses, had been saved.
Jeez, it's a thick shield.
This is not victory. It is death. It is bonds broken and bloody. And it shall mark us all for generations.
You guys doomed us. Shout out to the homie Vulcan.
The traitor legions had galvanized into a force capable of sundering the Imperium, and following the Battle of Istvaan V, had come close to extinguishing 3 entire Loyalist legions. The Loyalists were scattered, several legions were broken, and as the denizens of the warp continued to entrap and harry warp travel, it would take 133 solar days for the survivors of Istvaan V to return to the sanctuary of Holy Terror.
Holy Terror.
2 loyal sons of the Primarchs had perished, and the remnants of the shattered legions were largely leaderless and diminished to only a few thousand souls. No battle waged in the name of the Imperium would ever eclipse the losses of the Astartes incurred from the Dropsite Massacre, for such an engagement is less attributed as a battle, but rather a slaughter.
That's how I felt.
The
It's
War
like
Master's
horrifying.
gamble had paid off, and with his victory achieved, the Lupercal rallied his remaining traitor brethren to his cause. Forming a conclave of the Primarchs, Horus now allied with Perturabo of the Iron Warriors, Conrad Kurz of the Night Lords, Alfarius Omegon of the Alpha Legion, and even
Alpharius
Magnus
of
the
the
Red
Al-
of
oh.
the Thousand Suns set his gaze upon
Long time ago when I said Alpha Legion, it's Alpharius, and I should have remembered Alpharius Omegon because those are the twins, Alpha and Omega of the Alpha Legion. Got it. Alpharius Omegon of the Alpha Legion. They are twins, interchangeable. They're mad short. Got
the
it.
void. 9 legions stood at his banner, and it was now time to take their first steps to conquer the throne world. The forces of the 3rd, 12th, 14th, and 16th legions would rendezvous at Mars to liaise with
Look
the
at
Dark
this gun.
Mechanicum to aid in the schism of Mars in order to resupply and bolster their armaments. The Night Lords departed to the planet of Sagwalza in order to delay the Dark Angels from countering the Warmaster's forces, whilst the Iron Warriors would confront their nemesis, the Imperial Fists, stranded within the Foul System. The Death Guard busied themselves with a mission to recruit the White Scars to the fold of the Traitor Rebellion, and the Alpha Legion had infiltrated the ranks of the Raven Guard, and were also tasked with harrying the Space Wolves Legion. Whilst the Traitor Legions pilfered the armaments and war gear from the corpses of Istvaan V, small Black Shield warbands amassed the armaments and war gear from the corpses of Istvaan V. Small Black Shield warbands amassed within the Void to combat the Warmaster's fleets. Unable to confront the traitors head-on, these bands
Guerrilla
of
warfare.
Astartes, regardless of their scale, continued to harry the Warmaster's supply lines and patrols. The heroism of such venerable leaders.
Look at that gun. That's a cool gun.
The heroism of such venerable legions, bolstered by grievous losses, the warriors of the Iron Hands, Salamanders, and Raven Guard refused to surrender in the face of overwhelming odds. Surviving to the days of the 41st millennium as valiant champions of the Adeptus Astartes, their service though among the most devastated, regardless endures to this day. Never again would the Imperium suffer such catastrophic losses to such a one-sided encounter. Yet news of the civil war of the Horus Heresy still remained unknown to many forces of the Imperium loyal to the Emperor, and they would not be spared further deception.
Cool.
Hundreds of inconsolable citizens of terror threw themselves from the cliffs of the palace, or quietly took blades to their necks and wrists in the cold confines of their homes. On the American plains of Johannesburg, 7,000 men and women of a bioweapon storage facility exposed themselves to a pernicious strain of the newly developed Gangshi virus and perished in the flames of automated decontamination procedures, rather than live in a world where the Emperor could be betrayed. When word reached the Diamantsland prison island, the inmates declared themselves loyal servants of the Warmaster and slaughtered their overseers.
Crazy.
Regiments drawn from the Magyar Osirites mustered on the Meganesian heartlands, but the battle to retake the island would take many bloody weeks. All over the globe, the solid certainty of the Imperium's invincibility was crumbling, but worse was to come. As the sun reached its zenith above the hollow mountain and the shadows hid, word came that one of the Emperor's sons
I like that.
had fallen on the sands of Istvaan V. Ferrus Manus, Gene-sire of the Iron Hands, was dead, slain, it was said, by the hand of his most beloved brother.
Ferrus Manus, outcast dead.
This has been a tale of the great Imperium of Man.
Well, I finally did it. Let me shut up.
The Remembrancer. The losses incurred by the Loyalists of Istvaan V would never again be suffered by the Imperium.
Hell no, we're not gonna let that happen
Many
again.
trials and tribulations lay ahead for humanity following this grievous wound. Yet from the bleakest of nightmares shine the brightest of souls. Remember the fallen of Istvaan V, for their sacrifice was not made in vain. Our Imperium stands to this day, emboldened by the hatred of betrayers and murderers. For self-sacrifice is never futile, so long as it is cherished by those who find salvation from its deeds. So never forget those who give life and limb to enable your well-being and prosperity.
I actually like that quote. I got distracted.
Cherished by those who find salvation from its deeds.
Listen to this.
Never forget those who give life and limb to enable your well-being and prosperity.
So never forget those who give life and limb to enable your well-being and prosperity. What a way to end. All right, guys, I did it. Woo! These ones be long, man. It's always interesting. I'm just not a guy that sits still very long by myself. It's hard, man. That's why I don't stream and do those 3-hour videos that other people do. I don't like sitting still. But I wanted the information. I liked the information. It was fascinating. But what I don't like is actually how horrible the story is. Not from a writer's perspective. It's a massacre, bro. It don't feel good. It don't sound hype. It's horrible. It's horrendous. It's one-sided. He's just never like a one-sided. I don't even think I would have liked the one-sided war if we were beating the traitors. You know, everyone likes a good battle. But, you know, when it's that one-sided, it's terrible, man. Like, things that get me is like when civilians are attacked, people are just, I'm not going too deep, but it didn't really feel too good. But it was epic. The script was dope, and it was a great plan, man. It was great. But it was just the senseless loss of life. You know, it's bad. One of the best stories I could think of off the top of my head, and share with me a war story, guys, if you guys made it to the end. First of all, subscribe. I do have a channel goal of 20,000 subscribers right here. But in World War II, the Germans had ran up on these Russian homies, and these Russian homies were just out there in the cold with nothing, fam. These people charged tanks on horses. I think they actually pushed back the Germans somehow because of cold, lack of fuel, lack of resources. Them folks in Germany had to go on home or die. But it was bad, man. I'm looking at the casualties or reading about the casualties, and it's just epic. And some of those battles in World War I or World War II was just bad. People just absolutely getting mowed down against superior technology. Oh, I got another one, man. Another one that bothers me too. Historically, one of them, it actually makes my chest feel uncomfortable as I bring it up. I'm going to finish it, but like, these are the kind of things that bother me. Actually, there's two. I'm gonna say both of them. When like China had surrendered to Japan, I think that was also World War II, and they killed everybody anyways. These men surrendered, and they just killed them anyways. It's like, yo, that's so horrific. It's just the senseless loss of life. I just never. No one feels good, but I mean, certain things people just ignore, or it doesn't bother them, or they just glaze over the information. I can never glaze over the senseless loss of life. When two homies are locked in an epic battle and someone dies, great armies are clashing, people die. It's like, okay. But like when you surrendered and you got killed down anyways, I'm like, yo, they weren't even fighting, fam. It's like they were better off fighting and not surrendering and taking down as much of the enemy as possible. That would have, contributed further to their empire's success. But they surrendered, in good faith, and they got killed anyways. Bothers me. Pearl Harbor, homies was just chilling, having lunch, barbecuing on the beach, smashing, jacking off, doing all sorts of stuff. And homies came through with missiles, was bombing them. No one was ready for it. Countless senseless loss of life. I thought I was done, but we not. And the Americans are like, yo, we ain't gonna take that. Oh, what's that? Y'all ain't surrendered yet? Senseless loss of life, man. 80,000, 100,000 just gone. How many people died in Hiroshima? Again, I don't. That's why I'm looking at this. Israel ready to attack Iran? Hold on. I always like looking at global conflicts. What's going on over here? I already read that. Oh, Elon actually pulled it off after all that. Okay. Russia's war in Ukraine is now faltering. 4 things to watch in this robotaxi. You guys can see the ADHD. It's crazy, son. What was I looking up? Oh, Google's just not gonna work. Maybe Bing will work. I'll try this one. How many people died And here, there it is. Oh, I was right. 80,000. I didn't just throw out numbers. I knew it. 80,000. Shout out to the boy. Shout out to the boy. Not something to take pleasure in. And then Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Hiroshima. No one ever remembers the other one. I'm gonna try it. See how close I get. Nagasaki. There it goes. Off. That one was off. God. Yeah, that's. I don't take pleasure in those aspects of war. I always enjoy following war stories, the politics, the schemes, the plans. What I don't like is the lives lost. I like learning about the tanks. I like learning about aircraft carriers and the propelling system to shoot them off a carrier, landing, the battleships that surround the carrier, 2 submarines underneath, protecting your flagship, launching planes and just taking out a small country. Those things are fascinating, man. Just Ukraine throwing a whole horde of drones off of 5 trucks and just taking out our assets that belong to Russia. That's incredible, man. How'd you sneak that in there? I mean, we talking about $100 drones, you know, getting through thousands of dollars of missile defense systems because these missile defense systems not ready for those kinds of drones. Those kinds of things fascinate me, you know? You know, having a nuclear sub versus a diesel powered sub. Nuclear sub don't got a surface for God knows how long. The less time the surfaces, the less opportunities to get picked up by satellites. So that's good. If it's diesel, it got a surface, I don't know, every month. How often does a diesel submarine have to surface? Let's look that up. How often does a diesel submarine surface? There you go. 14 days. While nuclear can remain submerged for months, man. You know, those things is incredible, man. But the loss of life, I actually ranted a long time on that one. But that's how I felt about watching the video. The story feels real to me, you know? It was not like, oh, I just watched it and that's just it. So, God, that's a long one. I gotta add the Istvaan 5.3 is important. And I think that's it for my Istvaan 5. They're long stories, but again, I feel like you can't continue to dive into Warhammer 40K without at least reading about it or checking out some videos. So that's what I did. Oh, I want to check this out. Why did all the Primarchs hate Rebute Gilliman? All right, guys, I'm officially out. I'm tired now, but I enjoyed vibing with you guys. Later, subscribe if you haven't. As always, thanks for supporting this channel. If you don't know, we do have a Patreon, and it's free to join. You can stay updated, suggest content, or vote on polls. If you're interested in our uncut and early reactions to anime, K-drama, Western shows, and movie reactions, which include exclusive reactions not found on YouTube, you can join the upper tiers on Patreon, or you can stick with the edited content right here on YouTube. We got Yaboyrocklee reactions also in the description of this video. Until next time, I'm out.